Hi there, this is Catherine with Enfolded Heart Music. Welcome back to Lyre Foundations. Today we are going to be completing Chapter 4, which is a big milestone. Chapter 4 has been very intense with looking at all this different music theory. And today is going to be probably a pretty brief lesson. We're just going to be looking at the way in which dynamics and articulations are marked and indicated in sheet music. We've talked already about sort of how to do this on the lyre, at least many of these. I'll review that very briefly here as well. But if you're not sure about that, go ahead and go back to some of the earlier videos and lessons, and that explains that aspect of it. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'll do a little summary, and then we'll go into the specific markings of each particular dynamic notation and articulation. All right, so we're in lesson 6 of chapter 4. Let me move this just a little bit in front of me so I'm facing the microphone a bit more. All right, and so again, we're going to be talking about dynamics and articulations, not necessarily how to do them or even what they sound like quite as much, but what they look like. That's really our focus for today. So first we'll go through different dynamics, and then we'll go through articulations, and that will be it for today. So let's jump into the first one, dynamics. All right, so looking at dynamics first, we're on page 72, and we're looking at this first diagram here. It's really kind of the top two-thirds of the page. And we can see a really wide range of dynamics that's been listed here. We start with very, very loud. It's called fortissimo. And then we go very, very soft, which is called pianissimo. Now, I would say that really on the lyre, you don't have that wide of a dynamic range. Even on an instrument like the piano, you don't have that wide of a dynamic range. So it's very rare that you would see, a triple forte or a triple piano. That's something in a situation where you'd have like an orchestra or a symphony where you have lots of different instruments and lots of different people. And so you just, by nature of the way that volume works, you can have even a wider range. But I just put it on here just so that you have that information. And if you ever see that in a different context, you know what it is. I would say really the main range that we have realistically is forte to piano. Potentially you could have a pianissimo or a fortissimo, but it's probably not the most accurate way of describing it. And so you probably won't see that very much on lyre specific music, but you might see that elsewhere. Again, it's nice and helpful to know. So on the left, we have the name of the symbol. We have the symbol or the notation itself. So this is what you would see in sheet music. And then on the right hand side, you see the volume or the intensity. So what it means to actually play that. I'm not going to illustrate this here because I've already done that in a previous lesson. But now you know what it looks like, and therefore, and you also saw that in that other lesson. So this is actually kind of a little bit of a review here. But now you know very specifically what each of these notations means, and then you can practice doing that on your own lyre with your own music. Beneath this little black bar, we have simply a crescendo and decrescendo. And with the crescendo, it means that you gradually get louder, and with the decrescendo, that you gradually get softer. Pretty self-explanatory. We can see that the symbol sort of illustrates what we want to do. If the lines are closer to each other, you should be quieter. If they grow apart, you should play louder, and vice versa for the decrescendo. Excuse me. So take a look at that. Something that might be nice and helpful to do, I've kind of written this in the practice, is take music that you have or that you have access to. Even there's tons of stuff, just free stuff online, and try and find these in the music. And then listen to it. If you have the opportunity to listen to that music while you're looking at the sheet music, that's also really, really nice and helpful. Helps put the concept and the notation with the reality itself together. So that's something that you might do. That's all for dynamics. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at articulations, and then we'll close up this this lesson for today. Okay, looking now at pages 72 and 73, we're going to be looking at the articulations now. Now, a few of these I've already gone over in regards to how you play them. I'll do that a little bit more with ones that I haven't talked about that yet. But really, again, the focus of this lesson is to understand what they look like in the sheet music so that you know then what you're being called to do to express that particular composition as it was written. So we see here in this chart that again runs from the very bottom of 72 over to 73. We see on the left the name, in the middle the symbol or notation, what it will look like in the music, and then on the right hand side the meaning. What is it, what is it that we're supposed to be doing when we see these particular symbols? So the first one is a staccato. We see a little dot above the note. If you see a dot beside the note, that's something different. That indicates the length at which you hold the note, or allow it to ring in our case. But a staccato is a particular articulation. Articulations really are talking about a certain style of attack of the note. It does not impact the duration of the note. So how long we allow it to sort of the space that we allow it to take in the music. So for example, a quarter note is still going to be a quarter note even if it's staccato. Even if we play it short and light, it's still considered a quarter note, and that's the length it gets. If it were to be an eighth note, same thing. It still takes a half of a beat. It's just the way in which you play it is different. So that's important to understand and to know. The other way in which articulations present themselves is the relationship between the notes. This really comes about when we're talking about slurs and legato. So we'll talk about that. That's the last one. We'll talk about that at the end. But for the staccato, this is just a really short detached style. So in contrast to legato, which I'll again go over in a second, here's legato. And here would be staccato. You do have to mute the strings in order to do this. There's not a heaviness to this one. Rather, this is very light and very short. So that's staccato. We then look at an accent mark. Now, this doesn't have, we don't have to mute with this. This has to do with how hard we play the string. So this is putting a particular emphasis, a particular accent, as the name indicates, on a note. So say we have a little phrase. That's with no accents. All the notes have the same amount of emphasis. But let's put an accent on the first one. See, it doesn't change the length of the note. It doesn't change, how many beats that it takes, any of that. It just changes how hard we play it, gives it some interest in this little pattern. So that's an accent. A marcato is sort of a combination of the accent and a staccato. So you're going to play it with a heavier, really even heavier intensity than the accent mark, but you also will play it a little shorter. This one is probably the most difficult one to do on the lyre because you do now have to mute it after you've played it hard. Okay? So here would be the marcato. Let's just play it normal. And now let's add a marcato on that A here. Okay, so we can hear that it's not just the accent, but it also is being muted, so it's a lot shorter. It's kind of a sharpness to the marcato. Okay, then we have second to last, a pause or a fermata. And this I actually put almost at the end of every piece. What this means is that you will just sort of let the note ring out for longer than you normally would. This often comes after a ritardando or at the end of that. So say you're slowing down in a piece and you're sort of gradually getting to the final chord maybe, and then that chord just is allowed to ring out for a little while. So this is a little bit of a blurry line between what I said a moment ago about not allowing it to get more beats than is indicated by the note itself. So for example, this is still a quarter note on here. Say it was a whole note, it would still get 4 beats. This still gets 1 beat in 4/4 time, that sort of thing. But you do allow it to linger. That's probably the best word I could use for that. It adds a lot of drama, and it usually is utilized during either a particular dramatic part of the piece or a transition between one part to another, where you want to give the audience a moment to sort of rest and linger on that note for a second before you begin again. Okay. And then finally, the slur. We've already talked about legato. So a slur is simply indicating that you should play legato. Slur is the name of the line that connects the notes. Legato is the way in which you play it. So legato, again, is just connecting all these notes. They're all sort of touching each other. There's not gaps in between. this is how your lyre will naturally sound because of the way that the instrument works. It will ring, in contrast to something like a piano, where if you let go of the note, it automatically mutes it. So the way in which you play on a piano is usually not naturally legato. You have to work at that. You have to practice that a little bit. But on the lyre, it's very different. So, but if you see that slur, that's how you are to play. Now, if you don't see that slur on some music, go ahead and do that. This is just if somebody is really putting in all of the nuts and bolts, all of the particular details of that music, they'll have a slur in there. Or if they really want to make sure that you're playing it in that way with a slurred and legato form, then they'll put that in there. So, okay, those are the basic dynamics and articulation notation that you really need to know. So I'm going to close this up, and I'll speak very briefly for a moment, and then we'll end the lesson for today. All right, so one way to help integrate this information, which is what I've suggested in the practice on page 73, there's 3 ideas. First is simply to listen to different kinds of music and see if you can identify different kinds of articulations. You can even do YouTube videos where it shows you and allows you to listen to it. I've done a few examples here and in previous videos, so take a listen to that as well. But honestly, what would probably be even more helpful is to combine the second and third option that I suggest here, which is really the third option, where you have a piece of music and you're looking at it and you can see some of these signs, whether it's the dynamics, whether it's the articulations, whatever it may be, and listen to somebody who's playing it very well and sort of connect those two. I mentioned this earlier in the video, so that you can see it, you understand what it looks like, you understand now, because of the book, you understand what it's telling the musician to do and how to play it, and then you can also hear it. Of course, then I would add to that, go ahead and try it on your own lyre. Try it with your own music. Just play around on it, see what it feels like. And this is kind of combining parts 1 and parts 2 of this book, where now you know what it looks like, and previously we learned how to do that. So that would be my suggestion in really integrating this information. Again, most of this is just now understanding, oh, I know what those dots look like, or what they mean. I know what that line means, or what this, a particular symbol is telling me to do. So we're going to close now. Chapter 4, again, if you've made it this far, huge congratulations, because this is a big, very, very big chapter, especially if you're just getting into music theory and learning how to read sheet music. I hope it's going very well for you, and I hope slowly but surely things are really starting to integrate and you're enjoying this new knowledge that you now have. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I will answer them as best as I can. Thank you so much for watching, and again, I hope it's helpful to you. May God bless you. May the peace of Christ be with you. Thank you.